One of the most serious abuses of human rights has come through the Pentagon's development of, production of, and use of depleted uranium munitions. These munitions have have created an unending toll of casualties wherever they've been used, and they have created for the United States a great moral dilemma about when we are ready to recognize that the mere use of such munitions constitutes an offense against humanity. And when are we going to recognize our responsibility to not just stop making these munitions, but to help create the cleanup wherever they've been used, to help provide medical care for any person who's been adversely affected by it, and to do the long-range studies that must be done in order to calculate the human health effects and to ameliorate those effects in the long term. We're talking about something that will never go away, but if our commitment is to change the direction of America's use of these munitions and to stop it, then we can begin to repair the great damage that has been done, at least to try to mitigate it. We're not even close to doing that right now. Very few people in this country have made as solid a contribution to inspecting the seriousness of this and to addressing it in a forthright way as has the person I'm about to introduce. So I'd like at this moment if Dr. Doug would come up here. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Doug Rockey.
Key things that need to happen when General Schwarzkopf was hired to clean up the depleted uranium mess following Gulf War I and to serve as the Depleted Uranium Project Director for the Army. We rapidly realized the use of uranium munitions, we did not have the ability to clean up the contamination. We did not have the ability to provide medical care for any of the casualties, whether it be U.S. forces, friendly fire, or any of the coalition forces, or any of what we call the enemy forces. They're all God's children. And when you can't provide medical or carrying up the environment and you deliberately contaminate air, water, and soil, you have a problem, and it must be resolved. The essential things that must be done today. The United States Department of Defense and Department of Veteran Affairs has medical directives requiring medical care for all DU casualties within 72 hours. They are not complying with that. Residents community that were involved in Gulf War I have died from exposures. The Department of Defense has specific guidelines, Army regulations, Department of Defense regulations, requiring complete isolation, cleanup, and disposal of radioactive contamination. It is not happening as we speak. Video evidence, photographic evidence, on-site investigations verify not only here in the United States, right across the line over in Jefferson Proving Ground, it's not been cleaned up. In Baghdad, Iraq, all over, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Vieques, Puerto Rico, it's not cleaned up. Training and education. You need to provide total solid education and training for all individuals who come in contact with low-level radioactive materials and the effects of it. It's not being done. Proper radiation equipment, radiation detection equipment is not distributed. The Japanese just deployed into Iraq in a contaminated area with no equipment, either to detect the contamination or to protect their troops from exposure. Medical personnel are not being trained properly to provide medical care, even though it's absolutely required. This is a single depleted uranium round, ladies and gentlemen. This is an aluminum model of one tank round that's fired by an Abrams tank. This is aluminum. If this was actual, this thing would be over 10 pounds of solid uranium. We know contaminated with plutonium, neptunium, and americium. You fire one of these rounds, 40% breaks up into dust and oxides that be inhaled, ingested, absorbed, contaminate air, water, and soil. The United States Army Environmental Policy Institute, which was co-located here, confirmed that in their 1995 report. They stated, quote, "There is no way to reduce the toxicity of uranium munitions." and they ignore it and continue today. The question is, when do we say enough and stop contaminating air, water, and soil, not only with uranium, but all the contaminants of war?
Thank you very much, Doug, for your courage and your commitment and your relentlessness in alerting America and the world to the dangers of the use of depleted uranium, and in laying out the approach that we have to take in order to achieve a new direction.